The universe arises from a vibrating field of pure consciousness, producing the illusions of space-time, matter, and energy that comprise the seeming reality of our world. The infinitely varied forms of everything appearing in our experience are the product of vibrational patterns that weave all our possibilities and cast our die in the direction of whatever may be. The particulars of this evolving universe, a universe that's continuously being created, has produced a very intriguing drama. The divine mind, having reserved a domain in the field of divine consciousness for the formation of the universe, then set the creation into motion. The cosmic drama was narrated from the page 1 of the Big Bang flashpoint, through the expansion of space-time and the coalescing of stars and worlds now being reverse-engineered by science and its theories of cosmology. Interstellar dust clouds formed. Gravity arose from concentrated dust clouds, compressing their interstellar fumes until they ignited into stars. Stars that blazed over billions of years until they exploded with primal violence, spraying heavier elements like seed that spawned all the chemicals that became the building blocks of planets. Too long ago to comprehend, the star that is our sun was ignited from the remains of a prior star, firing up its fusion furnace to provide light and heat for the forming solar system. Our tiny, toddling blue world took shape, enduring upheaval after upheaval, wrought by planetary seizures the length of ice ages, of hellish geologic eras, and of oceans made by cometary collisions. Along the way, in those oceans, a soup of organic molecules combined in ways that in due course unleashed the most radical reshaping force the Earth has ever felt: life. Proteins became cells. They became the simple organisms of just about every possible shape. Expression of evolution went from being geologic to being biologic. Species came and went, but among those to have evolved in the past 200,000 years, one species displayed unparalleled adaptability, and with that adaptability has come to dominate the world. All of this history behind us, in the face of all the promise before us, every last aspect of it began to exist and continues to exist according to its pattern of vibration. But what is the origin of this vibrational pattern of our universe? How does the source of its vibration work? What defines the boundaries of the universe? And how does God express creative will so that it generates the vibrational patterns that shape our grand illusion? In this edition of the Temporal Reverie, I want to suggest ideas that extend the vision of a vibrating domain of divine consciousness operating at a supernatural magnitude of order to sustain and renew a dramatic universe through a cycle of eternal destruction and recreation. The ideas I want to consider not only fill in some of the gaps left in this vision, but also incorporate a long-held belief among some people about an infinite storehouse of all knowledge and wisdom contained in the universe. As someone who believes the universe is the product of creative intention arising from the mind of God, I realize this belief begs an important question. What is the nature of the creative process by which divine vision ultimately takes expression in the forms of space-time, matter, and energy? When you pay attention to the critique of a divinely created universe offered by atheists, one thing you notice is the way they frame the creator as an engineer or a designer. In using those terms, the critics project human expectations of good design or good engineering onto the divine. They then point to examples found in our world that suggest that such a God must be a pretty poor engineer or designer. Armed with this argument, they assert that there can be no God because such an omniscient and all-powerful being makes no sense. Such a flawless creator, they claim, would not create a universe rife with flaws and imperfections. Since our universe is indeed rife with flaws and imperfection, they ridicule the prospect of God as designer of the universe based on the contradiction they find between conventional ideas about God and conventional ideas about good design. This contradiction has more to do with the paradigm invoked than anything else. It's unsurprising that people not inclined to give any credence to the existence of God would judge the manner in which God as creator might operate based on very human-centric notions of creativity and design. What if the approach taken by God in creating the universe does not follow the patterns and practices of human engineering or human design aesthetics? As I have argued previously about the limits of applying a law-based concept to the working principles of the universe, resulting in the common notion of there being laws of nature, invoking a different concept can result in a richer, more satisfying way of seeing matters. Described as an unfolding drama, the structure and behavior of the universe could change as the underlying grammar of nature is applied in new and novel ways that allow previously unknown phenomena to arise and be expressed. A universe that unfolds as a drama with unexpected twists and unanticipated phenomena suggests a different relationship between the creation and its creator than that of a machine built by an engineer or a designer. Quite naturally, a dramatic universe would then be the product of a sacred narrative authored by a divine dramatist. The universe is thus formed, shaped, and evolved as a grand cosmic story written within the mind of God as storyteller. This perception of the Creator as author of the dramatic universe is actually reflected in the creation narrative told in the book of Genesis. The entire creation myth is framed as a series of statements made by God that, upon being uttered, caused the physical reality they described to take form and appear. What if that element of the creation story is more than metaphorical? What if the formation of the universe, everything it contains, and the unfolding of its emerging phenomena, such as life and human consciousness, was produced by an act of storytelling? I've come to believe that the physicality of the universe arises from a deep, complex, and constantly evolving pattern of vibration in the background field of divine consciousness. At the same time, as a panentheist, I also believe that the universe and God are not the same thing, that the universe is contained within God, whose infinity, I imagine, extends past the universe in all directions and dimensions. God the Creator is now reimagined, not as a tinkering engineer who designed a mechanistic universe, but as the author of a dramatic universe in which new phenomena can emerge unexpectedly like a surprise plot twist. The divine mind imagines and composes this dramatic universe, considering the alternatives and possibilities. When the creation narrative is ready, God commits his divine intention to expression in some manner of vibration we might call a sacred language. Somehow, this expression of divine narrative intention, vibrating and propagating through the field of divine consciousness, transforms into the underlying vibrations that produce and define the physical universe. But how? Once again, the metaphor of authorship suggests some tantalizing possibilities. Just as a human writer uses pencil and paper or a computer keyboard to properly capture the intent of their words, the creation of the universe perhaps necessitated a tool for interpreting dramatic narrative into vibrational expression. The mind of God might well conceive and establish a tool to facilitate the establishment of the universe, providing himself a way to simplify the busy work of the creation, in much the same way we might employ a word processor for our own writing projects. The first verse of the first chapter of the book of John talks about something it calls the Word, which it describes as being with God as well as being God. Previously, I've speculated that the Word is some kind of process that listens to the will of God for the universe and responds by changing the underlying vibrational structure of reality to materialize God's chosen narrative. Referring to such a process as the Word perhaps works well enough in the theological context of Scripture, but is not precise enough language to be useful in supposing how that process might operate. As far as we know, the physical universe is separated from the domain of the divine by a boundary of some kind, a vibrational envelope between the creation and the Creator. This envelope would have the ability to receive expressions of divine narrative intent, interpret that intent sufficient to give it form, then make the corresponding vibrational changes to the pattern that then reshapes the universe. One way to imagine this vibrational envelope is like the membrane that surrounds each of the cells in our bodies. These membranes keep the contents of the cell inside, while allowing molecules and energy to pass into and out of the cell. But the membrane surrounding the universe would let changes authored for the unfolding drama pass inside as a way of translating divine narrative into vibrational form, and thus into reality. What I call this vibrational membrane is the Maker Brane, inspired by some of the vocabulary used in variants of string theory called brain theory. The Maker Brane is a tool created and used by God in his role as divine storyteller. The Maker Brane synthesizes narrative intent dictated to it by a sufficiently enlightened consciousness. A tool with the ability to produce vibrational patterns suitable for shaping reality would be quite useful during the initial creation of the universe. It would also let an enlightened human being with divine awareness make arbitrary changes to the conditions of the universe, changes that take form immediately. The Maker Brane is what enables miracles. Jesus, enlightened in Christ consciousness, would have access to the Maker Brane and through it perform the full range of miracles attributed to him. I imagine the Maker Brane operates very much like the autonomic nervous system. By that, I mean it's fully capable of shaping and reshaping the universe according to the current narrative without any external operation or action, just as our autonomic nervous system keeps us breathing automatically without having to constantly remind ourselves to breathe. But also like our autonomic nervous system, the Maker Brane can be brought under conscious control by a sufficiently enlightened consciousness. The interpretation and expression of narrative intent is applied to the universe as a state of exception, even when that expression appears to defy the so-called laws of nature. While such states of exception might appear inexplicable or even unnatural to us, the phenomena arising from them appear and operate quite naturally within the higher magnitude of order we call the supernatural. In the Hindu spiritual narrative, there are 5 material elements that arise from what they call the astral world. The first and most fundamental of these 5 elements is called Akasha, which means ether. The other 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air all manifest from the Akasha. According to Hinduism, the chief characteristic of Akasha is sound, which I tend to envision more generally as vibration. The idea of an elemental vibration from which the physical elements of the universe are made resembles the description I give to the Maker Brane. They sound so similar that one might imagine that the Maker Brane is simply my own language for Akasha. I imagine Akasha as a component of the Maker Brane, one that exists to facilitate the endless recreation of the physical universe. Although the concept of Akasha originated in the Hindu spiritual tradition, it has found its way into a number of other spiritual beliefs. You can find Akasha discussed in Hinduism, Buddhism, Theosophy, and modern paganism. Even in contemporary culture, you find versions of Akasha being described, although with new names like the Force. Within some of the metaphysical beliefs born in Western cultures, such as Theosophy, Akasha has been popularized as something called the Akashic Record or the Akashic Library. As such, the Akashic Record is said to contain the full, detailed content of all information about the universe, past, present, and future. To tap into the Akashic Record is to gain access to the ultimate repository of knowledge and wisdom. I've come to avoid using language like the Akashic Record or the Akashic Library for the same reason I avoid talking about laws of nature. The vocabulary of a record or a library constrains and colors how we think of Akasha and how it might affect the reality of the universe. I prefer speaking of an Akashic field. That's a name that suggests a dynamism not implied by something as passive as a record or a library. The difference matters because I think the Akashic field does much more than act as a cosmic archive. I believe you can find a complete, exhaustive record of all information about the universe in the Akashic field, but this archival character is incidental to the principal purpose of the Akashic field, which is to help with the destruction and recreation of the universe. Just like the Genesis oscillation, the Akashic field is a holographic pattern of vibration distributed throughout the entire physical universe. In fact, as I imagine them, both the Genesis oscillation and the Akashic field are produced by the Maker Brane, forming a system that establishes the universe, sustains it, interprets the divine narrative into it, and which facilitates the operation of miracles. Previously, I've described several different metaphysical phenomena tied to the creation of the universe and the operation of miracles. Taken together, these ideas beg questions about their relationship to one another and to the reality of the universe. What narrative brings these things together, and for what ends? What I imagine is a metaphysical architecture that connects what science understands about the universe and the experience of my spiritual and religious beliefs. While physics seeks out their grand unified theory of everything, I attempt to describe my own metaphysical unifying theory, a theory that would truly unify everything, including what science convinces me is true and what my experience in the spirit feels is true. The picture that emerges for me in contemplating the nature of the universe is one drawn on a canvas that is the background field of divine consciousness. The divine mind, having chosen to create the universe, dedicated a portion of that field of pure consciousness as necessary raw material. This allocated fragment of divine mind included the establishment of the Maker Brane to serve as both a containing boundary and the means to interpret divine narrative into the dramatic universe. Containing the raw material of pure consciousness, the Maker Brane shapes that material in the source of the Genesis oscillation that endlessly drives a cycle of corporeality, collapse, chaos, and creation. During intervals of corporeality, when the universe occupies its state of maximum certainty, the vibrational pattern expressed as the whole universe is provided by the Maker Brane. But how? And from where? When the Genesis oscillation triggers the collapse of the universe, the entire vibrational pattern that gave the universe its shape is lost in the spreading homogeneity of chaos and maximum uncertainty. Given the random nature of quantum reality, there is no reason at all to assume that the recreated universe would even remotely resemble the one that was just destroyed. This is where the nature of the Akashic field becomes apparent. The Akashic field is also generated by the Maker Brane. When the Genesis oscillation drives the entire universe into collapse, then chaos, the last known good pattern of vibration for the universe echoes momentarily in the bubble of pure consciousness within the Maker Brane. This residual vibrational echo imprints the Akashic field, making a complete copy of the vibrational pattern that defined the reality of the universe. With each cycle of destruction and recreation, the Akashic field always holds a full copy of the last vibrational pattern of the universe. This is how the Akashic field can hold everything there is to know about the universe. During the interval of chaos, when the universe has no meaningful pattern of any kind, the Maker Brane performs its profound, singular miracle. It accesses the vibrational pattern stored in the Akashic field and transforms it, first by applying a routine series of vibrational transforms. These transforms take the narrative intent provided for the dramatic universe and applies an infinite number of minute alterations so that the new universe follows the path God intends it to follow. The forward evolution of the universe results from these transforms. These transforms define the predetermined default behavior of the universe, the default behavior that science seeks to understand and describes as the so-called laws of nature. Physics, chemistry, biology all operate the way they do because of the effects of these default transforms applied by the Maker Brane across successive creations of the universe. The endless cycle of creation, combined with the transforms done by the Maker Brane, define the very nature of time itself. The application of these default vibrational transforms on the pattern stored in the Akashic field is done automatically, part of the autonomic operation of the Maker Brane. Yet these default transforms are not the only changes that can be made in the Akashic field. Expressions of narrative intent directed at the Maker Brane by a sufficiently enlightened being are also interpreted as states of exception applied after the default transforms. When the effects of the Genesis oscillation abate and the universe swings out of chaos as it is once again created, the Maker Brane transmits a vibrational strobe to the Akashic field that causes it to ring like a bell with the vibrational pattern it contains, now altered by both the default transforms of the Maker Brane and any states of exception it was given. The new vibrational pattern offers a path of least resistance the universe takes as matter and energy return to their expected forms. This possible narrative for the nature of the universe, how it came to exist as a vibrational phenomenon created by divine being, how it is endlessly destroyed and recreated, the mystic architecture in which the resulting universe is an unfolding drama shaped by dramatic intent rather than by machinery, and in which miracles are possible, is a narrative proposed for one purpose. That purpose is to conceive the universe in such a way that brings the observations of science, the mystery of the supernatural, and articles of religious faith into a shared framework. In that sense, it's a narrative that not only describes the universe in which everything old, meaning everything that came before, is continually made new again, but is also one in which various bits of philosophical narrative that most people don't think can fit together are themselves made new in a way that fits them together. Critics and foes of religious belief depict the Christian religion as absurd and not to be believed, in part by attacking the stories of miracles done by Jesus. Because science has found no evidence to support the possibility of these miracles, their acceptance by believers as articles of faith is ridiculed by non-believers as fantasy at best and delusional at worst. The argument is that taken all together, these miracles would require an implausible set of superpowers, which amounts to a denial of reality. But there are phenomena observed within the universe that science has not yet found the narrative to explain, or an experiment that can prove or disprove them. While science can reasonably refuse to endorse any phenomenon that can't be explained by the prevailing scientific canon, that's a very different position than one claiming such phenomena are impossible. We should not be surprised that science, which by its very definition omits the validity of things we cannot observe or otherwise prove empirically, offers no supporting theories or narratives that might account for miracles. But what if Jesus did not require a mashup of imagined superpowers to produce all the miracles described in the Gospels? What if all the miracles of Jesus, indeed all miracles, can be made by use of a single ability, the means by which fishes and loaves multiplied to feed thousands, winds and storms were immediately calmed, water turned to wine, disfiguring disease erased, sight and hearing restored, and even the raising of the dead is the means to enable any miracle the conscious mind can imagine. Next time on the Temporal Reverie, I want to consider how human beings might undertake their own personal exploration of miracles. Because of the lifelong and intensely intimate connection between our personal consciousness and one particular part of physical reality, perhaps the place to begin such exploration is where miracles would impact us the most profoundly, the healing of our own bodies. Jesus had one superpower to facilitate any and every miracle he undertook, the power to connect it to the underlying vibrational definition of reality and rewrite it to exhibit any conditions or behavior he chose. The power to reshape reality arises from the manner and nature of consciousness itself, which opens the door to consideration of a truly exciting prospect, that we, as Jesus himself taught, can ourselves do all the things he did, and, as he also told us, much more. I'd like to know what you think of this episode. Please leave any questions or thoughts to share in the comments below. My thanks to God for this chance to share with all of you, and may the gifts of love, joy, peace, and enlightenment come to you all.